in that? What are the opportunities that you
Meet the all-new Hubtech. It's the
I made that pledge to
we live? Okay. Good evening and greetings from Haptel Kokomimle, Accra. My name is Prince Kobla Akutu. I'm the CEO of Apex Shipping. And this evening, I'm going to be moderating the SSTN Ghana funding discussion with our panelists. Before I introduce them, I want to say good evening and thank you to all of you who have joined us live via Zoom and who are watching us around the world. Thank you very much. I also would like to say a happy birthday to Darius Tita, our Executive Director of Stanford Seed, who's in Palo Alto in the United States of America. Darius, we want to say a happy birthday to you. The team from SSTN Ghana are wishing you a happy birthday and we hope you're enjoying your day. Okay. We're going to start today's SSTN Ghana funding discussion. And to my left is our one and only SSTN Ghana gentleman, Dr. Charles Yeboah. Dr. Charles, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We were also supposed to have been joined by the founder of Accents and Arts and the founder of DTI School, Miss Constance Waneka, but she's unable to make it in person. But we're hoping at some point in time she'll be able to join us online. Okay, so we'll start off with Dr. Yeboah. Welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome to all our SSTN members. Thank you for gracefully joining us. And we hope we're going to have a very interactive day, full of information and insight into raising funds. So, Dr. Yeboah, to start off, can you tell us about your company, International Community Schools, and what you do, for those who don't know?
Thank you. So, International Community School, we run schools, K-12 or preschool, primary to secondary school. And to just give you just a brief history, 1998, my wife and I returned to Ghana from the States. We're looking for a school in Kumasi where we settled, for our daughter who was in 8. We didn't find one that was really a good fit in terms of transitioning from a U.S. suburban schools. So we decided maybe we should start one. We started a school in our living room. 7 children came. And for 23 years now, we have run the school. Now we have almost 1,900 students spread on 4 campuses between Kumasi and Accra. The school name is International Community Schools. Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of work over the last period.
Yes.
So tell us, going through your Stanford Seed journey, because just to share insights with our viewers, did you raise funds prior to joining the Stanford Seed program?
Yes, I did, but I have raised far more funds, since I graduated from Stanford Seed than before I joined Stanford Seed.
Okay, thank you. So tell us, what informed the decision to go down the path of raising more funds after joining and going through the program?
Well, those of us that have been part of Stanford Seed, we all remember the transformation
Plan.
that we had to write. You had to write that you are capable of scaling, you are capable of building a greater, business, bigger, business. So I kind of took it very serious. I graduated from Stanford Seed in 2014, and in my transformation plan, I said that ICS will be in Accra the following year. We had operated in Kumasi all along. And lo and behold, we did come to Accra in 2015, based on the transformation plan. It was an expensive, move, to Accra because if you're in Accra, we started at East Legon on the Lagos Avenue, very expensive street. But we were very determined. We were lucky that we had a big commercial project that kind of backed up, what we're doing in Accra. The first 2 years what we did in Accra was not profitable based on just Accra operations alone, but because we had Kumasi backing it, we were okay. We became okay. Second year, we were able to break even, and then started making profit, the third year. But it was purely based on the transformation plan that we will go and have a footprint in Accra. And so it was basically just following the plan that we all wrote, when we went to Stanford Seed in 2013, 2014. Yeah.
Wow. So, Dr. Yeboah, a lot of us have done our transformation plans, but I'm sure a lot of us are watching you and saying, well, we all wrote the plan, but not very many of us have been able to take the bold step to say we're going raising funds. Can you give us an idea, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
as to how much
Yeah.
we're looking at raising and what that process entailed?
So first, let me take us back, so when I think we were challenged that your transformation plan should be big. It should be bigger than you, right? If it is bigger than you, it means that it will take more than you to make it happen. And for me, that is how I understood it. Your transformation plan must be bigger than you. If it is bigger than you, it means it must take more than you to make it happen. And that means that you are going to go beyond yourself to find resources to make your transformation plan happen. And in my case, or in the case of ICS, what we did was to see, one, can we do debt financing? That was one option. At where we began, debt financing was going to be expensive. So we decided that it probably would be better if we went the route of private equity funding. That is when you brought partners in. Now that is a very tricky road to take, because it means you're going to have to share the pie of the business with somebody else. But remember I said that the transformation plan said have something bigger than yourself. And if it is bigger than you, then it will take more than you to make it happen. And so we made a decision, my wife and I, that we'll bring people on board. We knew that that meant that a portion of the business will go to the person who is putting his or her money in. But usually when you bring private equity partners in, they don't stay forever. They come in for 5, 6 years because they raise funds from elsewhere. So they usually have a horizon of 6, at most 7 years, and then they will leave. In the case of ICS, our first big fundraising, we had to raise, close to 8 million euros. That was a lot of money, to raise. And usually when you do that, it means there is no, and I don't know how I explain that, put option on you. It means that when the person is leaving, you don't have to, provide funding to take the person out. We're actually at that point where the people that we brought in, are about to exit. And so we're actually on the market, looking for somebody to take them out. But it's not really my obligation to fund that, and there's somebody who's going to take them out. And if another person comes and is 6 years and they want to leave, somebody else will take them out. So that is how we did it. Basically bring somebody aboard, they take, a share of the business. And if the business does well, they gain, but you also do well. And so we're not afraid, to let a portion of the company. I mean, I can say on authority that ICS has done very well because of that, funding, or bringing people on board, in terms of our own stake in the business and the stake of those that brought funds in, so yeah.
Thank you for giving us the perspective in terms of the budgets we're looking at. I'm sure our viewers are itching to know how you went about it, but we'll take a short commercial break, And then when we come back, we can get into the details
Yeah.
of how you went about raising that money.
Yeah.
I made that pledge to myself and to next generation that whatever opportunity that we didn't have, they would work in a space that would truly unearth their talents. Because I think that creativity fosters creativity. And so the campus was very dear to my heart, that it should be an amazing space, that the minute you walk in, you know, the energy around you should be so positive that, you know, you look forward to going to school every day. So when I look at Raphael, one of the young people that we work with, who comes from a community that every day as he leaves Jamestown and he comes to school here, he sees the dire situation all around him, but at the same time, he sees it as opportunities. And so you look at these young people coming in as blank canvases, and you actually can see that where they see problems, now they see the great opportunities that the continent possesses. And this is exactly what we're teaching them, that you have the power. The only thing that we're giving you is opportunities and all the skills that you would require to make that change from the communities within you, which you come from.
Meet the all-new Hubtel. It's the very first time everything Hubtel has come together in a single and simple app across all devices. It's the simplest way to collect payments from a large group. From any Excel sheet to payments, straight to your bank account or mobile wallet. It's that simple. Just send a payment reminder via SMS text. Your contact pays online or via USSD, and your account is credited immediately. No long thing. Hubtel is food when you're hungry, and everything else from near you. Just make that order. We're on our way to your door. Hubtel is simply everything you.
Welcome to International Community School. I'm going to give you a brief history about where we started and when we started and how far we have come. So in 1998, my wife and I moved to Ghana from the US. We were looking for a school for our daughter who was 8, who had just, transitioned from US suburban schools, to Ghana. We didn't find one in Kumasi that we thought, would be a good fit, for her. So we decided, maybe we should start one. We set the school in our living room. 7 children came. 20 years later, it is a big development. We currently have 4 campuses that we operate in Kumasi and Accra. We started in Kumasi, obviously, and later moved to Accra to compete. We started on, East Legon, Lagos Avenue with 23 kids. Today we have close to 800 kids in Accra, and recently just built one of the most beautiful campuses you can find anywhere in the world.
Greetings from Hubtel Kokomilimili Accra. We want to thank Hubtel for giving us their facility to be able to have this discussion. I also want to welcome all of you who've just joined us to say thank you. We are hoping that this is going to be a very informative session in discussions with our panelists, Dr. Charles Yeboah, who's on my left, and from what I understand, Ms. Constance Waneka has been able to join us online. Is that right?
Yes.
Good evening, Constance. Making the time to join us. Can you hear us? Okay, great. Great, Constance. So we've been talking about funding, and we've been talking to Dr. Charles about his journey. we've heard about his school and his schools that he's built with funding. And we're welcoming you onto the show and asking, can you please tell us who Constance is and what you do? Tell us about Accents and Arts and then your school DTI.
Just some seed capital of $3,000. knocked on a lot of doors. Would you give me donations? Ghanaians don't believe in philanthropy. Africans, well, I'm paying for my nephew to go to school. So for me, that's philanthropy. Why would I pay for some stranger that I don't know? But Fred said to me that if you sold scholarships, it's something that would sell. And so what we did was that, don't give me money because you think I'm going to buy cement and stone. Would you sponsor, a young person to come to this school, even if it didn't make sense to you? And that worked. So we sold scholarships before school started. And then I walked up to Get Fund Scholarship Secretariat and I said, well, as a Ghanaian, every young Ghanaian deserves, to qualify for a scholarship. So I walked in and I pushed my way through and I said, well, I want scholarships for 32 students. And this is what I do. And after pestering them for months, I actually picked up a check for full payment of 32 students, in addition to the scholarships that I had sold. And this is what I used to also buy, iron rods and roofing sheets and everything that you see there. Of course, Ascot Shipping was also very, generous to also donate the shipping containers that we used. And that's one thing that for me always struck me, that if you're brave enough to do things when you can't even see clearly where you're going, but once you're passionate about what you're doing, the help will come. A year after we opened, I had no idea that the MasterCard Foundation was also entering Africa with their Young Africa Works strategy, which was focused on job creation. And they were also looking for very innovative new ideas or ventures that were, veering into job creation. And so they found us.
Constance, so let me just interrupt here. Before we get into the whole MasterCard Foundation, we want to find out, we know you started Accents and Arts and then later founded DTI. Can you take us through the journey in terms of, you also did the Stanford Seed program. Now, at what point did you conceive the idea of DTI? And what was the motivation behind pushing that through? Because you already had a business, which was Accents and Arts. So tell us, was it going through the Stanford Seed, and how did all of this play together to the point where you started another organization? Can you take us through that?
So definitely DTI is my transformation plan, because of course they task you to really think big and what your next steps are. And because I had been offering a lot of internship opportunities to young people from universities, it was glaring to me that there was a desperate need to definitely close the gap between academia and industry, because I had been training informally for free. Almost 600 to 800 young people who had come through the factory floor for years from all over Ghana, from different universities. Because of my own sojourn into industry, I knew that there was a missing gap. But having gone through the transformation program, it made so much sense, deeply understanding that this was a huge need. And when we were, tasked to think, how do you create impact and what would an impactful business look like? And so it was no brainer that, okay, how do I expand this informal training into a technical school? If you ask me, did I even know what I was doing? No. It was only when I started the school that I realized more and more and more that there was such a huge need and there was such a huge demand. And it quickly grew into a lot of the work that we're doing in the ecosystem. So apart from the training that we do at DTI, we're also working very closely with the public sector in policy. We're also working with the Council for Technical Vocational Education, helping them upgrade their curricula. we work with almost all the technical universities in Ghana, retraining university lecturers who are teaching TVET courses and have never even held hand tools. So in solving what we would call an entire systems change, it wasn't just now the school, but how do you go back to the source to find out what the issues are in the educational system? And so this is where, again, if you're brave enough to start something that you don't even know where it's going, the pieces connect somewhere along the line, and the funding to take you onto that next journey also comes. And I think that sometimes what we have to understand that having faith and having passion drive it also attracts the same energy to push you to that next level.
Point, Constance. Now, I hear you talk about faith and starting, and one common theme that rings with Dr. Charles' story also has to start with the transformation plan. So I think I'll go back to Dr. Charles now to hear from him from the transformation plan. What was the process? And then we come back to you, Constance, to also hear your process, because a lot of the listeners and viewers really want to know, because transformation plans have been written out, but what is the process? It appears intimidating because Dr. Charles mentions 8 million euros, and 8 million euros is not change. It's something that has to be well thought out. So, Constance, we'll go back to Dr. Charles to hear his process, and then we come back to you also to hear your process, so that our viewers can get a better understanding of as to how they can start taking steps towards raising their funds. So, Dr. Charles, over to you.
So, when I wrote my transformation plan, there was no figure attached to it. Basically, what I said was that we're going to move to Accra, and I didn't need 8 million euros, to rent a space in Accra. So what happened is that, once you find a partner or an investor, and then they sit down with you and you have a transformation plan, you have an idea about what you want to do. And investors and there are quite a number of investors that are looking for people that are hungry to expand and want to talk to you and fund your story and your aspirations. So it is in that detailed conversation about this where we've come from, this where we are, this where we want to go, and then you put a plan together. I need to upgrade Kumasi. I need to, invest in a property in Accra. I need to build a first phase. I need to. So the details is what will translate it into the amount that you need. And I must say, since that time, we have the funny thing that you raise 8 million euros and you think it's a lot of money. The school has actually had to invest alongside over the period. And then when it got to the point where we were actually building the new campus that we built in Accra, we didn't have any more money left from the 8 million euros. So we had to go back into the market and raise close to $7 million, to build that. So since then, we've raised what? So close to 50 million, that we've done. Again, is what you want to do, right? Because most of us, our transformation plan says, I want to expand, I want to do this, I want to do that. It is usually when you sit down with an investor or a banker that you actually, then spell out details of exactly what you want to do and what it will cost and what it will take. And then you have to decide, for example, so the last money that I raised, I realized that my the investor partners had deep pockets. They could have thrown the money at me, to do the new Accra campus. But if I did that, I'll be further diluted. So I said, no, I don't need more funding from the partners. I'll go to the market and raise debt financing to preserve, wherever we're at in terms of shareholding. So it's a mix, debt and financing. But I want to encourage my fellow transformers that there are a lot of funding managers, out there that are waiting to find a good business, to invest in. But you must have a dream. And you must have a dream that is, if I can use, that is exciting, because, you know, people come in, they can see what you want to do, and they can see, if I invest in this, you know, I will make money myself. So they are willing to invest in you, but you have to be able to articulate it, and convince them that, you know, you are taking them to a place where they will benefit, and then they will invest.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. I think what I take from this is, first, you must have a story.
You must have a story.
That's inspiring, that attracts people to you.
Yeah.
And your business must look like a business that's profitable.
Yes.
That will give back returns to investors.
Yeah.
But the next question is, how did you identify
Yes.
the right kind of partner or investor?
Mm.
Because people are wondering, we have banks, we have private equity firms, you have venture capitalists. How did you arrive at selecting the right fit for your business?
Mm.
Can you take us through that process?
So that's always a challenge. And so since seed, in fact, as soon as I step out of seed, I had an investor that was ready, who was in the school operating business, that was interested in investing in us. We went through conversations, we did due diligence, but at that point, I was not very comfortable, you know, with that particular, you know, operator, so we kind of backed out. So the thing is that there are a lot of people out there. You have to have a conversation with many, and then, you know, find what you think is the right person. If you find somebody who has invested in your kind of industry before, then it's easier, right? Because they understand the industry, and the pattern that we found had invested in schools before outside of Ghana, and so understood education, and it was okay, you know, to go with them. It is also, the detail is also about, you know, what is written. I always advise that you must find an advisor. If I had to do it again, I mean, when I did it in 2016, I thought, you know, I knew how to raise, you know, money, and I can do all the, you know, conversation, but later I found out that it was, you know, a mistake. You know, I did a lot of the negotiation myself. It pays to have, you know, a transaction advisor, and pay him well, even if he's going to take a lot of money from you. Some of them do it, you know, on percentage basis. You know, so if somebody had advised me and taken 1 or 2% of 8 million, he probably would have taken, what, 160,000, you know, euros, and you think is a lot of money, but he can save you a lot of millions, you know, if you find the right investor. So, and there are a lot of them out there that can really help guide you. You know, for example, as I said, we are at a phase where the investor that we found is about to exit. We found tons of people that are interested in taking their place out, and we are in the process of sifting through, you know, who will be the right fit, you know, for, you know, the school, you know, in the next frontier of our fundraising. So you have to find somebody to help you. You have to understand what the person wants. You must also know what you want, and you have to be able to determine that you guys can live together, and work together. It's always a tricky one. Sometimes if you haven't started, there are a lot of investors that will say, "Oh, add value," but they just come and sit, you know, on the board. They don't really add any value. So you really need, you know, to sift through that, you know. But I will say this: I think all of us have a potential to grow way beyond, you know, our dreams. I said beyond our dreams, and that means that somebody somewhere has to help you reach that which is beyond your dreams, because on your own you can't reach beyond your dreams, you know. And there are a lot of, you know, a lot of funds that are available, whether it's in the agri business, whether it's in the fintech, whether it's in you know, usually manufacturing. School education is a huge one. I mean, a lot of money chasing private education. So they are out there. Question is, are you willing to be diluted in order to really grow? That is also, I think, one of the concerns that we usually have, don't we? That I want to own 100% of my business. But I've always said that 100% of 1 million is not as much as 10% of 10 billion, right? So you may have a smaller stake, but because somebody has really helped you to really scale, and you have done what you couldn't have done by yourself, now your business is worth far more than what it was when you controlled it. And I think that is what we should be thinking when we think about business expansion,
Now, Dr. Charles, you talked about private equity being the investment vehicle that invested in your business. Now, can you tell us about your journey in engaging the private equity firm? Did you have to learn different set of language? Because you're talking about term sheets, you're talking about so many ARR, you're talking about so many other things. And you also talked about the fact that you're a co-founder. This business in the school was started by yourself and your wife.
Yes.
How did you work together in meeting these investors? Because people want to have a good idea as to what they need to do to prepare. Did you have to meet quite a number of investors? Did you have an institution or an organization that said, okay, well, we have this line of investors? How did you go about? How did you even identify this private equity firm?
So in my case, I was lucky. My board chairman happened to have worked in the investment banking space. So he actually knew this particular group and introduced them, to us. And they came for a meeting. We sat down. We found out, did a bit of due diligence on them to see what they've done before. And it turned out, they were, a good group, big firm, in Africa. So that's how we found out about them. But prior to that, we had engaged others. There are others that sometimes come to you to use you to raise funds, to then bring it to you. So there are lots of people out there that don't have the money raised yet, but they can come and waste your time, So there are those who already have the funds that are already, and you want to really make sure that the people that you're talking to actually have the funds available to invest, and they are not using your story to go and raise money to bring to you, because that can delay your transformation journey. In this particular case, they already, had the funds, to do so. Okay, so that's how I met them, through my,
your board chairman.
But in this current phase where we are now looking for somebody to take them out, we have engaged together with the partners, engage a transaction advisor who is looking out and scouting, who is out there looking to invest in schools. And that also is easy to find,
Okay, we'll come back to your lessons learned and the experience in onboarding a new partner or investor. But I'd like us to go back to Constance. Constance, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Constance, can you take us through your journey of fundraising? Now, you have two organizations. You have Accents and Arts, and you have DTI. Which of these organizations did you go out looking for funds, and which of these organizations did you actually raise the funds for? Can you tell us how you went about this?
Okay. So Prince, what I talked about this desperate need to there was a lot of funding, the development partners. So at the point at which we attracted the MasterCard Foundation, there was a call for proposals. So we are a non-for-profit. We're a social enterprise. We're trying to create jobs, impact. And so we had to put in a proposal. And basically, this is where I use my transformation story and build the proposal around job creation and how I would create jobs around systems change. And because we're looking for innovative ideas, this was something that they were able to fund. And so we got capital of almost $6.9 million to create 40,000 direct and indirect jobs in 3 years. The Young Africa Work strategy is for 10 years. And Young Africa Works through the MasterCard Foundation is trying to create 3 million jobs in just Ghana and 30 million across Africa. And so as a social enterprise, there's so much funding around job creation, around youth, trying to train young people to work in different sectors. And one of the biggest areas is around agriculture. So if you're in the agri space, this would be a great opportunity for you to win a lot of funding. But that means that you have to be willing to probably maybe look at your business and say that, am I looking at probably maybe setting up a non-for-profit arm? So this is how the Asteshi model is also modeled on. You probably ask, oh, what about the question of sustainability? I'll talk about that in a while. And most recently, we've also won 3 million euros from the African Union through the KFW. This was also a grant, and this was focused on bricks and mortar. And so MasterCard would do scholarships and would pay for equipment and pay for everything else, but they don't do bricks and mortar. And so the funding that we won through the Skills Initiative for Africa under the African Union was for bricks and mortar. And recently, there's also another grant that came out, Invest for Jobs, which you can access up to 10 million euros. And this is also just grants. Now, to the point about sustainability, we then created a business development arm, and we're looking at, okay, so how do we also keep DTI to be sustainable in the long run? We're looking at now fee-paying students across the continent. Africa doesn't have data. And so when we went to the ILO, Ghana doesn't have data. There's no credible data about how many young people are unemployed. And so this is when we realized that, oh, wow, data is also money. And so if we're now collecting so much data through our M&E department, this is something that we can capitalize on, because if you go to the ILO right now, Africa doesn't have credible data. And this is something that we realized that, oh my goodness, if you look at how you can mine data, this is where we have all these security threats across West Africa right now. It informs economies, it informs everything around us. And this is something that we realized that it was also another game changer. And so we've created another department that we call the Center of Excellence that is now working with a labor economist. We're working with researchers. We're working with all sorts of people who then would feed into Africa being the next investment frontier, but data drives everything. And so this is, for us, where we're now looking at pushing revenue. At the new campus, we're going to have an industrial park, and that will be fully for profit, because post-COVID, manufacturing companies are looking at leaving China. And so Africa being the next investment frontier, we see that once we have a critical mass of talent, we definitely see a lot of manufacturing companies moving to Africa. And so this is where on the enclave, we would have the social enterprise, which is the school, and then we'll have the industrial park behind the campus. And then we're also looking at what you call a paying forward model, where industry is also desperately looking for high quality talent. And so industry would pay for staffing to come to DTI to be trained, and they would pay for training. I was in Germany last month, and Germany is very big on what you call the dual TVET system. And there's a close relationship with academia and industry. And so this is where industry really works with schools, and they pay for young people to be trained. So it's an interesting space to be in right now. And this was just something that when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. But the more I went into the space, the more these opportunities and all these openings started happening. And this is what I would encourage a lot of the members, that sometimes
don't be afraid to venture out into things that, doesn't seem like it would make sense. But if we think inside the box and we don't think outside the box, we limit ourselves so much. And this is something that I learned through my own personal transformation as a leader as well.
Constance, you talked about the $6.9 million MasterCard grant. I'm sure as soon as you mentioned that, people's eyes and ears went wide open. So we want to know, how did you first of all find out about such an opportunity? And how did you go applying it for it? And can you give us an idea as to what was the time frame? We'll come back to Dr. Charles as well, so that he can give us an idea, because sometimes we want the money, we want it fast. We are not interested in the long talk. We want it today. So can you give us some perspective so that others who are now heading towards that journey can have some idea as to what they should be expecting?
Prince, entrepreneurs, it's just when an opportunity comes, you're ready. And as I said, when the school opened in 2019, I had no idea that MasterCard was coming to Africa with Young Africa Works. And so when they came and they were looking for people who are doing interesting space in this area, I just happened to be in a space where all of a sudden African governments all over the continent were talking about, the need for technical and vocational education, job creation, the skill sector. And I think this is where, having worked in the space for 25 years, when it came, I just quickly grabbed it. And that's the thing. I think that sometimes just being in a space at the right time, if I may say.
I think from what you're saying, first, get started, have faith, keep moving, prepare yourself for opportunities. We'll take a break, and then when we come back, we want to understand your experience in that process of applying for that grant. So we'll take a commercial break now.
Manufacturing Limited. As a leading apparel and garment manufacturing company, we feel responsible for whatever had cast name to it. So we needed a quality conscious workforce with precision to ensure our services and products are of world-class quality. DTI came in and rolled out the acquisition quality training for our staffs. It was an intensive 3 weeks training. It was a period of great learning and value addition for Card Manufacturing Limited. It has really impacted on our attitude and consciousness for quality. I would recommend this training not only for apparel manufacturing companies, but also for all other companies within the various aspects of our economy. CARD hope to collaborate more with DTI in this area, building a quality conscious workforce for Ghana. Thank you very much.
My name is Constance Swanyika. I'm the CEO of Accent and Art and Design and Technology Institute. I'm extending an invitation to all my Stanford Seed fellow members to a 3-day training that we're organizing on precision quality. Precision quality is all about soft skills training, a mindset shift to ensure that the struggles that we face within demanding that our workers understand what customers' needs are. So this doesn't mean that it's just limited to the manufacturing industry, but whether you are in any industry, goods or providing services, it cuts across board. And I think this is something that as CEOs, we all complain about, the mindset of our workers. And so I'm encouraging you that I have seen the benefits of what it's done for my own company and where I am today.
So we're back. Constance, thank you for all that information. I'm sure we're all inspired. But we want to go back to the point where I think the ringing bell of T plan, having that T plan and moving from the T plan. And you spoke about the fact that an opportunity came and it just so happened you were in the space and you were doing something. Take us through the process. How did you apply for it? Did you have an advisor? How did you even hear about the opportunity? Because people want to know, are there specific institutions around that they can actually walk up to or give a call to or send an email? How was it for you? How did you hear about the opportunity? How did you apply? How was the application process for you? Before we go back to Dr. Charles.
So, for a lot of these organizations, it's like a big boys club. You don't go soliciting for funds. They find you, and if you're doing good work in your space, no matter how quiet you are, your work would speak for itself, and they will find you through the network. And so I was lucky that I was found because the ecosystem saw what I was doing. Now, to the point about writing proposals to win such a grant is a lot of work. We worked with a consultant who worked at the IFC, who was very experienced in writing at a very high level because, as Charles said, there's a lot of financials, financial modeling, the concept note, corporate governance, everything that we went through the transformation journey on our business plan, and everything that, all the topics that we treated really came to bear. Corporate governance was one big thing. I mean, this is a brand that is worth billions of dollars, so how are you positioned yourself such that when such an opportunity comes, you are not now scrambling to put together a board, so their due diligence checklist is a lot. And after we went through this process working with the consultant that we worked with at the IFC, MasterCard was also very gracious to give us consultants to help us flesh it out. And so usually they have all these templates that has a lot of questions that you have to answer. It was a 3-year process. And if you're not patient, you would give up. And I'm sure Dr. Yeboah will tell you the same thing. You are courting each other. And so this is where are you willing to go the long haul? It was the same process with the grant that we won from the African Union, a 3-year process. Fortunately, because we had gone through the same pain with MasterCard, it was the same experience that we built on, to the point that you become a master, right, writing these concept notes and these proposals. And a lot of the times you pick from here, you pick from there, and you customize it to a particular grant or particular opportunity. So you become good at grantsmanship after a while. And if you're not good at writing grants, usually the people, professionals in the space that you can hire, as Dr. Yeboah said, usually they'll take a low percentage of the funding. But there's a lot of funding out there for young people, for job creation. You could probably decide that, okay, maybe I want to add a social enterprise part to what I'm doing. And it's also a good way of raising capital indirectly. The thing is, as a social enterprise, I don't own it because it's not for profit. And so that's why it's also very important that concurrently how you think of sustainability right from the start as well.
I'll just go over the key points that we're taking as we go along. First has to do with the story of the business or the institution, and that comes from your T plan. So it appears that all those who've locked their T plans in drawers, we need to go back and pull our T plans out and start looking at these T plans, because people have used these T plans to produce good proposals in securing funding. So that's number one. I think the other thing that is striking is the fact that you need to have people around you that can draw the right support to you. As Dr. Charles mentioned, his board chairman was familiar with the space. Constance said she was doing the right thing, and so she was found out, but there had to be somebody who would see what Constance was doing and would speak about what Constance is doing. And so having the right people around you. You both talked about the advantage of having an advisor, and Constance, you talked about the IFC consultant, and I think Dr. Charles also mentioned the fact that if he had to do this again, he would actually engage the services of an advisor. And then I heard again corporate governance. I think this was one of the key issues that we all discussed during the transformation program. But it appears that before you even start anything, these basics need to be in place. And so I think those are the key things I'm taking from what both of you have said. I think the fifth one is the time frame. Constance has mentioned 3 years for the first one, and then another 3 years for the second one. So we are going to move to Dr. Charles to find out how long, because we need to set some realistic expectations, learning from those who have already gone down that road. So Dr. Charles, over to you.
So not too different in terms of the timelines. Yes, so not too different in terms of the timelines, except that probably I was a bit luckier. Usually when you're raising funds, either from the bank, the banks they are usually faster. It could be 3 months to 6 months. Private equity, because they take a lot of risk, they need to do a lot of work in terms of due diligence and all that. So their process might take anywhere between 6 months to a year. It will start with first engaging, understanding the business, you understanding them, to now exchange of information, school documents, accounts audited, corporate governance issue, board, company profile, and all of that. And then it will lead into due diligence, and then a proposal. Usually they will send you an offer, and then there will be a due diligence if in the process of a due diligence, they find something that they didn't know before, it could affect the value that they had proposed and all of that. And then the lawyers come in, they have to draft, the legal agreements, which you have to review with your lawyer as well. So the process can take about, in my case, probably took about, we started probably around February, we closed in December. About a year. So we've started a new process that we start again in February. It's likely to close in November. So it takes a while. But I'm doing, a fundraise now with another U.S. government entity that has taken me over 3 years. So it takes a while, but that's because, part of it because of COVID anyway. So you need patience. But again, I think it is worth, emphasizing that there are funds out there available, but you need to have dream and aspirations that are exciting, for people to want to invest in. It has to be exciting. It has to be exciting for you so that you are talking about it all the time. And then somebody wants to now come along and invest in that, But it must be not just exciting, but it must be business. It must make business sense. People are not just interested in throwing money at you because you have excited. It must give them some returns also. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Charles, there's another thing that keeps people away from opening up their tents, which is fear. And we want to know from you what your experience was. Signing on new investors. What did you have to give up? Because the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And so we want to know from you your experience. Yeah. What are some of the powers, authority that you had to give up? And what has been your experience since you brought on new investors or partners to your business over the period?
Well, the key thing is what we mentioned earlier about corporate governance. Because the moment you bring investors in, they now sit on your board. You are no longer the 100% owner of the business. You are no longer the sole decision maker of the business. So from the time, when I can just decide I'm going to build this, I'm going to build that, and I didn't need, to come up with any budget, I just want to do it, right? Now to subjecting your plans to the board, to your partners, to vet, for them to feel aligned, that this is the right thing to do, or for them to say no, for example, as part of this transformation plan, we had an opportunity, for example, to purchase, actually, to acquire a school in Togo. I went there, I was excited, I wanted to really do this. My partners were not that excited, so it didn't happen, So if I were alone in the business, I had the means to do it, I would have done it, right? But so there are some checks and balances, when you bring them on board. Sometimes they slow you down. Sometimes you have to fight not to be slowed down, because, there have been series of situations, especially in the Accra, expansion, where my partners, for example, were not enthused about developing it, but I was going to do it. During COVID, they were not enthused to continue building, but I built all through COVID. So there are times that you need to listen. There are times you don't need to listen. But you have to be able to make your case, because you are partners, right? And so, the point here is that you are no longer on your own, and that there are other voices, in the room that you have to listen to. But they can be good voices. I think nobody has all the ideas in the world to build a great business. And most of the investors are business people. Entrepreneurs are faith. We take steps of faith, right? And we don't usually think through some of the consequences. The financiers are usually too business-minded, and they don't know risk. So you have to kind of learn how to live together, because sometimes they need you, the entrepreneur, who is prepared to take a risk. I think my partners will tell you they are happy I built the Accra campus now, even though they were too fearful that, COVID was there, and you were, taking risk, to build and not knowing what was going to happen. Today, I think I'm sure wherever they are, anytime they're talking to others, we build a great campus in Accra, even though they really didn't want to do it. So you kind of need each other, somebody to really, advise, to say, I think there was a business risk here. And I also need an entrepreneur to challenge you to see what you can see as just a finance person, Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Listening to you and talking about risk and going through the process, I have a question in mind, which is, you need advisors.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point you talked about lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
At some point you also mentioned financial advisors.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to go back again, which of these two need to come first?
So you need the financial advisors first, the business advisors. Because the lawyers usually just come to basically look through the agreement to make sure there is nothing there that is likely to hurt you going forward. But the business advice and the business, conversation you have to have with a potential investor, and make sure you are getting what you want. Because in my first experience, the lawyer really didn't help me, because the lawyer doesn't understand the business. I've just gone and negotiated for a deal. All that he has to do is to make sure, okay, this is what you negotiated for, and it marries, whatever, legal agreements that have been written, right? But if I had a financial advisor, he would have been able to advise what these guys are bringing, hard currency, it has a potential to dilute you going forward. So ask for this, ask for that, before you move on, So business advisory first, before the legal advice, come in. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarity. Constance, we'll come back to you. Are you with us?
Yes.
Great. So going off the 3-year process of the first raise, Your raise had to do with a grant, so they were not taking ownership or equity in your business. But can you tell us from that experience, even though it was a grant, what did you have to give up and what did you have to do in order to secure that grant? Because we know that definitely there will be some terms and conditions. So what have you had to go through over the last 3 years in order to have access to the grant?
Oh my goodness. As Dr. Yeboah said, now it's a partnership. And so we are a partner, which means that they are in your office. Now there's a lot of narrative reports. Every receipt for everything that we expend, you're scanning and you're uploading into a system. Because nobody's going to give you, quote unquote, a grant and you're just going to, there are all these terms and conditions and contract deliverables, which means that, you're working very hard as well. It's a win-win. And so this is something that for you to continue to get more and more support, once there's this trust built, and they know that you're delivering on your mandate, you do get more funding. But if anybody sits back and thinks that it's an easy ride, no. Dr. Yeboah probably has more flexibility than I do, because of what it comes with. And so this is something that you must have a very good team that is very diligent, because they're scrutinizing every dollar spent. And so this is what it comes with. So this is why your corporate governance has to be really, really up to point, your systems, your processes, everything that you do end to end, because they're also auditing, but otherwise, I think for me, it's a great way to grow. So you slowly grow your sustainability to the point where you want to also get to the point where you're exiting. Otherwise, by the time you're so, quote unquote, spoiled with all this funding, the danger is that you also will not have time to grow on your own, because you're so saddled with all these reports that you're sending. So that's another thing that, from my own experience, that you have to understand the risk that it also comes with.
Constance, when you were just making this submission, you made a point about the team. And most of us are aware that when we entered the Stanford Seed program, most of us entered as heroic leaders. We were the do-it-all leaders and superheroes. But we learned from Stanford Seed that we needed to become post-heroic leaders and bring others along with us. But we also find ourselves in an environment where talent is a challenge. How important was the team, your team, in raising this fund or this grant? Was it a key point by the foundation to measure to see whether, it was an important part of or reason to select DTI as the winner of the bid? Can you tell us about that? How important was your team?
Hello, Prince. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So when we submitted the proposal and we were successful, it then meant that, okay, now you're building the team. So that was the big challenge that we had to now quickly, because the project has a time span, we grew exponentially by 400%. It was crazy. From a staff strength of, say, maybe 20, we were now like 120 project staff, quote unquote. And this is where then the cracks were like, oh my goodness, we're working on this visionary project, and I was way ahead of the team. and we were struggling to bring the rest along. So I had to stop and then also bring in 2 consultants from Canada, from another grant that I also won, that I needed to build a team. A young team that had very limited experience in industry insights, in the TVET space, this dual TVET system that we're running, and it put a lot of pressure on me. I found myself having to, at a point, carry the team on my shoulders. And so we did a lot of investment in capacity building, constantly working on our teams. And I would also bounce off a lot of ideas with Patrick Lewa. And what he said to me was that your biggest battles would come from within. He said to me that don't be afraid to get rid of people who don't believe in the vision. And I always tell people that I'm only interested in hiring people who believe in the vision of where we're going. I'm not interested in people who are just sitting on our payroll. No. You have to have the sense of ownership of the impact of the work that we're doing. And the best teams that we've had are the young people that we've hired, sometimes straight out of university, green vessels. Our biggest challenges have been the ones who think they have all these fancy degrees and are not open to learning. So what we do now is that we're hiring for attitude. We don't hire for CVs. If you have the right attitude and you have a learning spirit, I'm interested in working with you. Because if you don't have the right people, you don't have the business, you don't have anything. And this is also because of my own experience and the curriculum that we designed as a result, this mindset shift. Ghanaians think that they're doing you a favor. When I've hired you and you think you're doing me a favor, are you kidding me? No. Why are you in the organization? Why? You have to ask yourself the why. And this is something that you mustn't be afraid to fire. You keep firing till you find the right fit. And that is very important. So you get to the point where you build this organizational culture that anybody who comes in understands that this is the culture, this is how we work here. If you can't fit in, nobody will tell you within 2 months you leave.
Until we find the right fit. On that note, we're going to take a commercial break. And then when we come back, we want to get questions from our viewers online. So please feel free to send in questions. And then when we come back after the commercial break, we'll read some of your questions and then our panelists will answer. Thank you.
I made that pledge to myself and to next generation that whatever opportunity that we didn't have, they would work in a space that would truly unearth their talents. Because I think that creativity fosters creativity. And so the campus was very dear to my heart, that it should be an amazing space, that the minute you walk in, the energy around you should be so positive that, you look forward to going to school every day. So when I look at Raphael, one of the young people that we work with, who comes from a community that every day as he leaves Jamestown and he comes to school here, he sees the dire situation all around him, but at the same time, he sees it as opportunities. And so you look at these young people coming in as blank canvases and you actually can see that where they see problems, now they see the great opportunities that the continent possesses. And this is exactly what we're teaching them, that you have the power. The only thing that we're giving you is opportunities and all the skills that you would require to make that change from the communities within you, which you come from.
Meet the all-new Hubtel. It's the very first time everything Hubtel has come together in a single and simple app across all devices. It's the simplest way to collect payments from a large group. From any Excel sheet to payments, straight to your bank account or mobile wallet. It's that simple. Just send a payment reminder via SMS text. Your contact pays online or via USSD, and your account is credited immediately. No long thing. Hubtel is food when you're hungry, and everything else from near you. Just make that order. We're on our way to your door. Hubtel is simply everything you.
Welcome to International Community School. I'm going to give you a brief history about where we started and when we started and how far we have come. So in 1998, my wife and I moved to Ghana from the US. We were looking for a school for our daughter who was 8, who had just, transitioned from US suburban schools, to Ghana. We didn't find one in Kumasi that we thought, would be a good fit, for her. So we decided, maybe we should start one. We set the school in our living room. 7 children came. 20 years later, it is a big development. We currently have 4 campuses that we operate in Kumasi and Accra. We started in Kumasi, obviously, and later moved to Accra to compete. We started on, East Legon, Lagos Avenue with 23 kids. Today we have close to 800 kids in Accra, and recently just built one of the most beautiful campuses you can find anywhere in the world.
Greetings from Hubtel, Ghana, all the way from Kokomimli, Accra. We want to say thank you for gracefully giving us your office to be able to have these very insightful discussions on fundraising. We are back and we're going to be taking some questions from our viewers and then some of our guests who are here with us. So we'll start with Reverend Sami Ejipon. Can you please?
Hello, Doc.
Yes, hi.
I want to congratulate you on the work you have done so far.
Well, thank you.
You made a significant impact on the education scene in Ghana.
Thank you.
We started a bit earlier than you. We are 35 next year.
35? Okay. So we're just about 12 years behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you've made a great impact, and I want to say
trying.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
The question I want to ask you is, so from where you are, where next? Because I know it's been a journey. We've followed a similar journey. The challenges are great, especially when it comes to the financial aspect of the whole thing. I liked what you said about your vision being bigger than you, so that obviously you need somebody to help you to do it. The people are out there, but it's always trying to find the right fit, and that is one of the greatest areas. Maybe you were fortunate that you found the right fit at the beginning, and along the way you have learned that maybe you would have done things a little different. Than you did, but then that's part of the learning curve.
Yes.
So as you are learning, you are passing on what you have learned to those that are also coming up.
Yeah.
Which is good. Which is what this is all is supposed to be about. Especially with our Stanford people, with all our T programs, which some have locked away, and it is gathering dust. They should bring it out and look again at what that can do for them. So from here, where next? It looks like you've gone a long way.
Come a long way.
And where are you going to now?
Well, so, I think that there's a lot more that we can do. I've always been inspired by something that Miles Monroe said. many years ago before he died. He said, "Die empty." And in that conversation that he had, I think it was in Kenya, that he said that, by the time that you are dead, you should make sure that every good and every potential that you have in you must come out. So that when you are lying there in your coffin, you are just an empty shell. Nothing good is in you. That inspires me to also want to go for more. I think I'm still young. I still have energy. Even though I'm not that young, I'm 57. So what we are trying to do in the next phase, like I said, current partners are about to exit, and we are looking for somebody to take their place, but I've been very clear that we just don't want another person to just sit in the boardroom, they just take their money, and then we want somebody who is also willing to invest in the future. So we think there was something more that we can do. We built Accra. We're almost reaching our capacity. We started before COVID, we were about 290. Today we are over 800 and growing. And when I look at the enrollment that we are getting, by September, we probably will be hitting close to 1,000. And our facility will be full. So now we are looking, when we started, we were thinking about how do we fill this huge place up. Now the question is, how do we find another place that we can expand into? So that's the next 5 years we are looking into maybe, an opportunity to expand somewhere else in Accra, either buy some properties around us. I think I still have at least the next 5 or 6 years, to go and then slow down. But whilst you have the opportunity, I think we should go for it. And so we are not done yet until it is over, like we say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Ejepon. We'll take another question from Mr. Kobi Asma.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I love the conversation going on right now. Constance, you are such an inspiration to all of us. And I guess I speak for lots of the guests who are seated here. We came here thinking that we were going to listen to you, show us the way how to raise funds. But here we are, you're teaching us corporate governance, you're teaching us HR, how to recruit. And for me, the biggest thing that I've heard today is one statement you made, that your biggest battle will come from within. And I'm just reflecting it. I happen to also be in the space of manufacturing, and I've been in this space for 29 years and still evolving. You are so bold in answering all the issues that come your way. And I'm so excited to hear from both of you, Charles and Constance, telling us about the options that we have in scaling. Because funding is a key thing that sometimes really evades us, whether to go for equity or debt, or in some cases you wonder whether you only want to dilute it or you want to sell out and move into other industries altogether. So my question here is that you're talking about diluting your stake, giving a certain portion, part of your business, to an investor. Are there investors who are ready to take 100% of you so that you can just move on?
There are, if they find what you have interesting enough, So there are investors that want to take a full majority, except that any good investor will not want you to exit at the time they are coming in. If they believe in the business, it is because of you, right? So if they come in and you're exiting, who is going to lead them into the journey of the transformation that you have written, right? So you have to be part, at least for 2-3 years, and then later if you want to exit, then there can be that kind of opportunity for you. But no investor, especially coming into this space that he doesn't know about, will say, well, I've seen Type has done so well, and this is what they want to do. I want to invest in, and then they put the money and then, Kobe is out, because then there's no future, right? So, yeah, they may take, say, 70% of the business, but not 100 right away. Or if they do, they will still want you to be running the business, but not to exit, because then there is no future without you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So it means that there are options available to all of us.
Yes.
We're still waiting for our viewers if there are any questions. I think, Ellie, you have some question?
Yeah. Is my microphone on? Okay, so I have several questions, but I'll take two and then allow someone else to come in, and if there's time, I'll ask. So my first question goes to both of you, and I'd like you to answer honestly. You've made mistakes. Mm-hmm. What could have tripped you up badly?
So, for me, I said that, so when we got to Accra, we funded our presence in Accra initially by ourselves. And when we got to the point where we knew the school was growing, we were in a hurry a bit to raise funds, right? And I think in my first round, like I said, I did much of the negotiation myself. And, the investors were ready. They were interested in investing in us. But I could have slowed down just a bit, to really find a good advisor, to really guide me through the process. I didn't do that, So that is sometimes, the regret that don't be in a hurry to raise the fund. Do the right thing, and take your time to get it. Because the funds are there, you will get it, but take your time to get it done. So just find, again, echoing what Constance Ahadu said, find an advisor, find somebody that understands the terrain better, who can guide you. Because especially with private equity, there's a lot of issues at stake. You're going to give part of your shares. There are some agreements that are going to be written that could potentially, dilute you further if you don't protect, yourself. With some, clauses, especially if you're going to find yourself in a minority stake. Most of the private equity funds, just so that you know, most of them have deep pockets. They don't invest less than $5 million, right? Because of the cost of doing due diligence alone can cost you, between $150,000 to $100,000, and the legal fees and what have you, So it costs a lot of money. So, and if your business is as small, and somebody is going to put 5 or 10 million into it, then you could be significantly diluted. And because of that, you really need to have a good advisor to make sure, at least even if you're a minority, that you have minority rights that are protected, in the process. So that is what I think I should have done, best. I've learned the lesson now, and I think I've become better negotiator now, with an advisor on my side, as we go to our second round of investments. Yeah.
So, Constance, I want you to take this from a female entrepreneur's perspective. We are not risk takers, you said, and I know that. But you were still ready to jump into the deep end. What could have been really bad for you?
Ellie, the fact that we jumped into the deep end, we grew exponentially. And for me, the cracks, was with the people, HR, and not having robust HR systems. It meant that you're also working with international partners, and then you've also recruited local who don't have the mindset of, listen, you're working with international partners, you can't do things anyhow. And so in driving to ensure that we had HR systems that were really working at the level at which our international partners expected, meant that, we had to let people who didn't fit go immediately. There were times where you had a void because you didn't also want to rush to fill in those gaps. And this is something that I would say to a lot of leaders. Sometimes, you want to fire somebody. The timing is not right. because you also don't want to create the impression of high staff turnover. You find that sometimes you will find very good talents with somebody that is quietly sitting in their own corner doing, So how do you also look within the organization to sometimes quickly ask people to, hey, try your hands on this, and you'll be surprised at the hidden talent that you find within your organizations. Understanding your business yourself. Now, in my case, I'm moving in from manufacturing and then I'm moving into education. Dr. Yaboa would tell you that, my goodness, and Dr. Japan, that the education space is a different ballgame altogether. And this is something that I also overlooked, that, oh my goodness, I had to learn myself, education management. And so I personally also went through a lot of learning, a huge learning curve. Fortunately for me, because my mother was into education, I was able to ask and bounce off ideas of her. There were times that I even called Dr. Ebo and I would speak to Dr. Japan, and bounce off. I would call some of our colleagues in the network who were into education and ask questions. So don't be afraid to ask questions. You will fail, you learn from it. And so if you ask me what I know about education now, I can write a whole book. And so that for me was the biggest learning curve. I jumped in and then I figured out how to swim. And that for me was the biggest risk that I've ever taken. It was painful, but there was also a lot of learning along the way.
Thank you both. And picking up from where Constance left off, I sit here as a representative of the organization that led you into your T plans to start with. And I'm asking myself questions, so you have to tell us. I don't want smaller size. So in the C transformation program, we have different size businesses. So I don't want us to leave this forum with others thinking, these ones sound like really big businesses. They are talking 8 million euros, and I'm not even close to $1 million. And who would be interested in my business, for example? And what Constance just said triggered something in my brain. How can the transformation program equip you not to get to the level where you realize I could have done better? So the transformation plan, I tell people all the time that you were doing your businesses, you were quite happy running your businesses until someone tells you, dream bigger, we're going to work with you. And the promise that Stanford Seed says all the time is, we don't want you to walk alone, we want you to walk far, we're going to work with you. We've actually changed our mission to say we are partnering with you to bring prosperity to your regions. So what can we do better to eliminate those challenges you discover whilst you are walking this walk? So that in case you needed to actually have these conversations around, it's my transformation plan, how do I fund it? Do I divest? Do I do something else? What in the transformation program and in your T plans could have prepared you better? And I'm asking this advisedly because there are others who are coming after you, and we can actually find a plan using Stanford resources and all the expertise we have to provide support to you. What do we have done better?
Okay, so in my view, I think the challenge was there in the program, write your plan, believe that you can scale, and then you did it, we all did it. Perhaps some kind of a follow-up, would have been helpful in terms of, okay, so how do you do this fundraising bit? Who could be a good support, to you, when you get out there and doing it. And that could mean, Stanford, looking out within the ecosystem, even in Ghana. It doesn't have to be even from Stanford. Who can we, so we have developed these, we've taken these businesses through training. They are at the point that they are now looking to raise funds. Who is out there that can be a coach, even locally, if we can find somebody from, overseas, who can guide them towards the next step that they should take? What does it take? How do you identify, a potential investor? What do you need to understand about going through the process? I know that I remember Hans, Nelson actually traveling with me to Lomé, to go and see a potential, financier that was interested in looking at, but I think if there are some people within the financial ecosystem in Ghana, and there are, whose services can be used, to really help guide, those that have gone through or going through the program. So that once you are out, these are certain things that you need to do. For example, is somebody going to vet or help you check your board? Is it really working? Is your board really working? Or is this just people that you've just called, they are your friends? If your board members are just your friends, and that you can listen to or not listen to, it's not going to help you with the business. So is there somebody out there that can really be recruited to really challenge us to do it right? Because like I said, funds are available, but you have to be prepared, to raise it. Things have to be in place. So somebody that is guiding you, who understands even the local terrain, who will tell you this, what you need to do, you have to have this A, B, C, D in place. That will be helpful, I think, for a lot of my colleague. Yeah.
Yeah, so we go back to Constance. I think we have some questions from our viewers online. First, there's a question which says, do you expect government support in any way, shape, or form? How did you manage the cultural differences in bringing in foreign partners? And then lastly, can Stanford C support SSTN members in pointing to credible potential funding agencies? So Constance, I think the first two, and then we go back to Dr. Charles. I think he can also answer those questions. Answer those questions. Answer those questions. Answer those questions.
So Prince, for us, we have a strictly non-political policy. When you're working with international partners as well, no political affiliations. And I think for most entrepreneurs in the private sector, we all are aware of the ecosystem that we operate in. So that's the thing. We have over the years worked strictly in private sector. In fact, we've gotten no government support to date. And this is something that I must stress, that we're not politically mature enough, that sadly, I know some of our fellow entrepreneurs whose companies would collapse because probably maybe you were a little visible within one political regime and the party changes and there's a lot of witch hunting. And so this is something that is a no-no for us. I would also echo what Dr. Yeboah said, that I didn't have anybody holding my hand. It was a very painful transformation journey to where I've gotten to. And so I would hope that our journey would make it easier for a lot of the other members. I started off with a balance sheet of just $250,000 to win within 3 years all this money and grants that we've won. I didn't have anybody really hand-holding me, with the exception of my board, especially my board chairman, who had a very corporate background. A lot of mistakes that I made, it was a very lonely space. And I think this is conversations that I even had extensively with Linda. And I would hope that we would have a little toolbook that would be, look, these are things to look out for. This is an ecosystem of how do you even run grants? What would they be looking at? And this is something that I think that definitely I would like to use myself, and I'm happy Dr. Yobo has talked about it. How do we make it easier for local companies to transform? There's so much funding out there, whether it's a grant you're looking for or equity or whatever. How do we just access it? And what are those steps that one has to take to access it? And that's all. Definitely, I think that Stanford Seed should definitely look at how they support the STN members in transitioning, instead of just, after the training and then you're on your own in the wilderness. So this is really inspiring, and I'd like to commend Linda, the team, for organizing this. And I would hope that our stories would inspire and make it easier for the other members as well.
Okay, so yeah, I think no government, no support. I mean, I think when the government is in fact broke and going to IMF, you probably want to leave them be, right? It's not a political statement. I think that the government has so much, on its hands already, so I think you better just do it your own. Government will come and tell you we are doing this, and let them do it, and then just focus on what you need to do. I mean, usually it's the foreigners that will ask us, are you getting the government support? Because out there, you get government support. But here, you don't. You are pretty much on your own. I think, I think we've just talked about, I remember when we were at Stanford Seed, at one point there were some fund managers that came through, private equity that came through. I hope they still come through. But after they have come through, like, Constance also said, somebody needs to guide you, to really help you to know how to really understand the language, of negotiation, with a private equity firm. The banks are easy, right? I mean, they just look at your business and see whether it makes sense. Then they will just fund you, and then you pay it back, But I think if you really want to really grow, most of the time you don't need the bankers. You need, a partner. Because the bank's loan, can kill you. The private equity, there is no security, right? No collateral. They take risk. And you take a risk, along them. But so if somebody can help you really navigate, that terrain, I think that can be. So I think that's one thing that I think we should really look into. And there are people in Ghana that can be recruited, to support businesses, to find funding, and then also to know how to secure it, through the process of funding.
Okay. I think we have one more question, and then we'll try to close this up. We have a question from Mr. William Ham, and he says, are there any benchmarks that you can use to assess your organization if you're ready for funding? And this goes to both parties.
Yeah. I think, we talk about investment readiness. So your board, your accounts, you must do your own self-DD, because most investors will do due diligence on you. Are you paying your taxes? Do you have your tax clearance certificates? Are you okay with, SNIT issues? So there are a whole lot of things that you want to make sure that you have under control, that nobody is going to come and look at you and see that you owe SNIT, millions of cedis. They are not going to be interested. You have a strong board, you're on salary, it is clear, what your salary is. So those sort of things, I think if you've done it, then I think you are ready. But I go back to what I said earlier, you must have a story to tell. You must have not just what you did in the past, because investors don't invest in your past, they invest in your future. So you must have a good story to tell, but an aspiration to share. If you have that, then I think you are ready to go.
From Ellie.
as Dr. Yeboah was speaking, I just realized that raising capital in this environment will appear to be more challenging than I even thought, because I'm thinking about your taxes, your SNITs, and so on and so forth. And sometimes, exactly, so sometimes you are at a place where you even need the money. So you may have done the small level at your level, but sometimes you really need money to put other real systems in place. And I'm asking myself the question, what makes America take millions of money and fund innovation with no proof, but we on this side can't get it to happen? You've walked the walk. I think you may have an insight. What is that trick that doesn't get us to get money to fund even innovation? And we have to have all these proofs.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is, lack of government support. You are on your own. You walk alone. And I think that is a challenge. And, I know when you are going to, if somebody's going to come and do a due diligence on you, and they're going to go to SNIT, they're going to go to GRA, they want to see the report, you go to the GRA and you want the tax clearance, that is an opportunity for them to do audit on you, right? So and then of course, sometimes people even find out that you are raising funds. People are not too enthused about you because they think they are helping you, to become well off, So all of that is there. But I still believe that, in Ghana and in Africa, in our part of the world, what you need is a stronger faith and determination. That no matter what is put, out there in front of you, you're going to jump over the hurdle and get to where you want to be. So there has to be that determination that you're going to get it done. It's going to take a long time for government or some, NGOs, although as Stanford said, there are some organizations that will fund non-profits. Unfortunately, for profit, it's difficult to find some free falls, money-wise. So you're going to have to do it on your own, unfortunately, until the government comes out of its own challenges, and hope that maybe Obatampa may work, later in the future.
So now that you added a little bit of luck,
yeah,
we are getting to the place where we have to agree with Linda's point of view, that in this part of the world, God is fully God over time. Because both of you have been talking about you have to have the faith, and it's been leading, so you have faith and passion. I think on that note, I finally agree with Linda that in this part of the world, God is allowed to be God, and he works full-time.
He works full-time.
Thank you, Ellie. We'll take a comment from Mr. Kobi Asma.
Yes, in this part of the world, I guess that's the conversation we are engaged in. I can hear from you, and that's what I'm taking home, that the typical Ghanaian would rather not share, would rather take it all. But I'm going home understanding that beyond even the money that an investor or someone who is coming to share a portion of the pie with you, I get the understanding that they are bringing color to your management, bring controls. What you would typically not do, they would insist and make sure it's done. And so they bring strength to the structure and the vision. So they add to whatever we are doing rather than doing it on your own, because the vision can be very small. Their experience and the extent of their insight will rather strengthen the vision and take it further than the dream that you have set. So I guess that's one thing that I take away from here, that it's not a bad thing to divide and work with other people who have interest in your vision.
Yeah. And one other thing that I must add, I think, remember at Stanford Seed, we all talked about we must build businesses that will survive us when we are gone, a legacy. And if you do this all by yourself, you are going to leave it and it will just die, when you are no longer there. But I think the value of having others involved is that they put structures in place, stronger corporate governance, and your business become, one that could survive you, stand the test. And because, you're going to have to put succession plan in place at some point, so the business you run will survive you. And so I think for me, one of the reasons why that actually have made me want to bring others on board is because I don't want to be the only person that have to run this business until I die. And then when I die, what happens, to the business, so. Yeah.
Okay, we seem to have one more question on the screen from Josephine Jackson. But Josephine, your question is not too clear. Can you please type it out again so that we can understand your question and then we can have a response to that? But in the meantime, again, we just want to acknowledge our venue sponsor, that's Hubtel Ghana. We want to thank them for gracefully sharing their office space for the use of this discussion. We're very grateful. We also want to thank the SSTN executive team that organized this discussion. We're grateful, and we hope that viewers have gotten good insights from the discussions we've had so far. We also want to thank you for being here. Josephine, can we have your question before we leave? Okay, Reverend Sammy Ejipon wants to share a comment.
The comment I want to share is to do with what bringing partners or even taking a bank loan does to the organization. It puts you in the spotlight, okay? And they require certain things of you to do, which actually strengthens the organization. And especially to do with the governance issues. I'm glad our sister Constance brought up the governance issues. It's one of the major things that they look at. They will look at your board. They will scrutinize you, really scrutinize you. Maybe, some of us don't want to be scrutinized that much. But if you are going to put yourself out there, you will be scrutinized. Not just the things that you are thinking about maybe doing in the future or even the things that you are doing now. They will scrutinize your past to make sure that this person that they want to sponsor or they want to give a loan to or they want to partner up with is who they say they are and that they can work with you. So sometimes, actually bringing in other people other than yourself to do the business is a good thing. It's a very good thing. Like you say, you may not end up eating the whole pie, but if you are bringing somebody to help to build a bigger pie, it makes sense. It makes sense. So, Doc, we want to thank you for your sharing your story. Constance, we want to thank you for sharing your story as well. We are all encouraged. We are all supposed to encourage one another. We are all in the education, well, we all happen to be in the education field. We all face similar. It is similar. It's, once you are in that sphere, you will face similar things. And we can all help each other. That's why it's good to talk to each other, even those that are not in the field. We can learn so much from each other because we are dealing with humans. Whether, like you're saying in the HR field, I like Constance's thing that she will fire until she gets the right fit. In education, it's hard. But we certainly can learn from each other. Thank
you, Reverend Ejipon. Josephine, thank you for rephrasing your question. Josephine says, how do you strategize in investing the funds you've raised so that you don't run into debt? Constance, I'd like to throw this to you so that you can give us your perspective before we have the final remarks.
That women, we don't like risk. And then so very prudent management, very lean management. If you give a woman 1 cedi, she will multiply it into 10 cedis. And that's the thing for me that has worked well, just because of this female.
Well, I think we got the gist of Constance's response, which is prudent management. Constance, are you back with us? Well, whilst we wait, Dr. AC Ansah also sends a message. She says with the new Companies Act 992 and with investor interests, it's important to engage the services of a professional company, secretarial services, and it sharpens your corporate governance. I think the issue of corporate governance keeps coming up. Most of us run businesses and want to run it from the comfort of our homes, in the sense where we do not want people checking us. But this corporate governance is one that really ensures sustainability with or without you, your presence. And so it's one of the key things that I think has stood out throughout the discussions, and I think all of us have to take and go back home with. Constance, are you with us before we round up?
Sorry, the line cut. I was saying that, again, I was talking about, being a female entrepreneur, not taking risk, very lean management. And so this is something that I'm constantly working very closely with the finance team. You have to keep a close eye on your books. And sometimes our staff don't tell us the truth. Make it your business to understand every aspect of your business. And a lot of the time, your gut feeling, listen to your gut feeling. Sometimes they mess up, and because they think that they're covering up, if you're not careful, the next thing you see, you're in a hole that you ask yourself, how did we get into this hole? So make sure that you don't compromise on the finance budget. Make sure that you have a good financial controller, but you yourself have to really be on top of your finances. That's very important.
I think whilst we still have you on the call, can you please share your final remarks?
My final open up to give of yourself. By sharing, you also gain so much back. And I think this is something that I am very grateful for. I wouldn't have gotten to where I've gotten to if I wasn't open to sharing. And I think this is such a Ghanaian thing that we don't like to share. If I know that, Prince, there's a deal that I think you qualify for, why don't I link you up to that? And I think that in the ecosystem, we should stop working in silos. And I would hope that because we're all part of the network, there's this trust that I know you. And so if I introduce you to somebody, I'm happy when you succeed. And this is something that I would like us to do more. Let's share more, and let's be a bit more open about how we do things. And so again, I'd like to thank the leadership for giving us this platform to share, because as Ellie said, why should some of us transform and the rest shouldn't transform? We are all on a journey together. When we do well, then Africa does well. And that's my final takeaway.
As kudos, Dr. Charles.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think I echo the same. The opportunity to share our experiences. This has been great. I want to encourage my fellow transformers that we all can do it. I think learning from each other. I'll be very happy to share with the team, the Stanford Network, some of the funding, organizations that are out there, private equity funds, they fund in all sort of sectors. Like I said, most of them, of course, they usually have, or they do big tickets. So you have to be prepared, to raise, funds that are beyond, 5 million. If your vision and the transformation was supposed to be bigger than, So there are there. I'll be very happy to share, some of those, people that we have encountered that I also know invest in all other sectors. But I think let's believe in our dream. I would say that it is possible to realize the transformation vision, that we put together. It's not too late. As long as we have life, I think we have hope. We can still rise up and get it done. And just be determined that it will be done. I think it is possible. If we have done it, it means it is possible. And I think I want to encourage all of us to go for it. Yeah.
On behalf of the network, I want to say thank you to Constance and Dr. Charles for joining us, gracing us with your time, your wisdom, and your experience, and sharing insights, because this helps all other companies to grow beyond where they are today. Again, I want to say thank you to our host company, which is Hubtel, in the heart of Kokomemle, Accra. We want to thank you for giving off your office space for this purpose. I want to say a big thank you to the SSTN network, the executive team, for putting this together. And most importantly, our Presido, Mrs. Linda Ampa, for pushing this agenda and getting everybody around. Lastly, I want to say thank you to all the viewers that logged on. We see you, we appreciate you. We hope this time has been valuable and insightful to you. And we hope that we can do many more of these, and hoping that we have a gentleman here, we have a lady there, and you are inspired. Dr. Charles said, have a story to tell, but an aspiration to share. We hope that you all leave here and have some aspirations to share. Thank you very much. We also thank God for the opportunity to be here and to discuss about funding. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Hello, I'm the General Manager for Card Manufacturing Limited. As a leading apparel and garment manufacturing company, we feel responsible for whatever had cast name to it. So we needed a quality-conscious workforce with precision to ensure our services and products are of world-class quality. DTI came in and rolled out their precision quality training for our staffs. It was an intensive 3 weeks training. It was a period of great learning and value addition for Card Manufacturing Limited. It has really impacted on our attitude and consciousness for quality. I would recommend this training not only for apparel manufacturing companies, but also for all other companies within the various aspects of our economy. CARD hopes to collaborate more with DTI in this area, building a quality-conscious workforce for Ghana. Thank you very much.
My name is Constance Soinika. I'm the CEO of Accent and Art and Design Technology Institute. I'm extending an invitation to all my Stanford Seed fellow members to a 3-day training that we're organizing on precision quality. Precision quality is all about soft skills training, a mindset shift to ensure that the struggles that we face within demanding that our workers understand what customers' needs are. So this doesn't mean that it's just limited to the manufacturing industry, but whether you are in any industry, goods or providing services, it cuts across board. And I think this is something that as CEOs we all complain about, the mindset of our workers. And so I'm encouraging you that I have seen the benefits of what it's done for my own company and where I am today.
Meet the all-new Hubtel. It's the very first time everything Hubtel has come together in a single and simple app across all devices. It's the simplest way to collect payments from a large group. From any Excel sheet to payments, straight to your bank account or mobile wallet. It's that simple. Just send a payment reminder via SMS text. Your contact pays online or via USSD, and your account is credited immediately. No long thing. Hubtel is food when you're hungry, and everything else from near you. Just make that order. We're on our way to your door. Hubtel is simply everything you.